Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller with you, Garden Plaza of Valley View. Welcome home. Getting ready for the holiday season. We're joined by Fred and Doug. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Fred, you were telling me that you've been listening to KIDO Talk Radio for many, many years. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
I feel like we're live during the morning show, even though we're here in the afternoon. Tell us a little bit about the shows you've listened to on KIDO.
Oh, I used to listen when Chris and John were on, and I can't think of the.
You've got Ernie Adams and John and Chris and
yes,
so many people. Can you believe that KIDO is 90 years old?
I know it was the first radio station in Idaho.
It was, yeah.
And yes. The finance man,
Dave Petzo.
Dave Petzo, yes, I enjoy his show every week.
Well, we'll have to pass that along to Dave Petzo.
I've met him a couple times. I don't know him.
What was he like in person?
Very nice.
Yeah, he's a nice man.
He came to our church when I was on the board of trustees and was talking about the investment of the endowment funds, and.
Well, that's always good. You know,
yes.
Petzo loves the markets.
Yes, he does. And I enjoy his shows.
Well, we appreciate that. Tell us a little bit about what you do here at Garden Plaza. Do you run the place?
Well, I'm a new resident here. I just moved in 1 week ago.
Oh, wow.
And I came here from the veterans. And I had a wonderful experience at the veterans. They were terrific.
Sure. You remember Phil Hawkins and the gang there at the veterans home, right?
Yes, I was in the hospital for a week, and then I was in care for rehabilitation for almost 3 weeks.
Okay.
And to get me, I couldn't hardly move when I went in, and I came out walking just almost as good as I did a month ago.
Wow, that's terrific.
Yes.
So are you excited for the holidays?
Yes, I'm going to my aunt's, Doug's aunt's, my sister-in-law's, and she'll have a house full, so we'll have a great time.
So what's the first week been like?
It's been wonderful. The help is just outstanding.
And you'd recommend Garden Plaza to your friends?
I sure would. My wife was here 3.5 years ago, and she spent her last 4 months. That's how I knew about Garden Plaza. And I spent a lot of time here. And I ate a lot of meals here, and I enjoyed their food, and I still do. Okay,
well, we'll get back to you. Let's talk to your son, Doug. Can you tell us a little about your son at all? Would you like to introduce him? This is your
yes.
broadcasting debut?
Yes. My son, Doug, is my primary caretaker now, and he's been very attentive to me.
Well, Doug, welcome to Welcome Home. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure, sir.
So what went into the decision to have your dad move in here?
There were a number of factors of having Dad move here. Some of them were that, as an example, I'm a single, adult male. I work. So having him move in with me would present issues that just weren't easy to manage. Having him move here, he actually made that choice completely on his own. He had, like he mentioned, an emotional attachment to Valley View and the skilled nursing section particularly. He had very positive experience here, and I don't think there was ever even a question that this is where he wanted to be. So.
And for you, what type of due diligence did you do?
So I have a number of friends at work who are about my age, and they have parents or in-laws that are in independent living or assisted living. So I talked with various people who had direct experience. Of course, going to the marketing is one thing, but having an understanding of people who are actual residents is a different thing, can be a different thing entirely. And most people had very positive things to say about the situations they were in or the facilities that they had chosen, but the people here that I spoke to when I came for a tour, and I spoke to staff and I spoke to residents, not one person did I see that seemed even in the slightest bit unhappy. And that made quite an impression on me, to be honest, to walk down the hall and see the residents walking and smiling and talking and interacting.
Doug, can you tell us just the process of establishing that trust? You talked about doing your research past the marketing, but if gosh forbid something would happen to your dad, and in the middle of the night, you want to make sure that they contact you, and just the process that you went through of trusting the folks here at Garden Plaza Valley View.
So the trust for me was heavily established over the level of professionalism that I experienced here. When somebody said they would call, they called. When somebody said they would answer the phone, they answered. I cannot remember a single time that I've had to even leave a voicemail that either somebody or somebody they work with answered the phone and spoke to me directly, very openly and very frankly. I never felt misled or misguided in the slightest. And that went a long way for me, because it is quite an emotional thing. I know it is for Dad, and it's a huge emotional thing for me to know that he's in hands that will care for him the best that they can when I can't. So
sure, that is easier said than done, sir, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's when I'm going to say it, Dad, and I'm going to apologize to you ahead of time, but my dad is my hero. He's an amazing, amazing individual, and he is somebody that I want to have the best care that we can manage. And I do believe that Jennifer and staff are just incredible at that, and I have every confidence.
Fred, what do you have to say?
Well, he takes care of me, and I appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about your first week. Fred, tell us a little bit about your first week here.
Yes. Well, when I moved in, I was completely strange, with everybody. And I've met extremely nice people that are residents, and the meals have been great. And I just couldn't say enough nice about them.
Well, we've heard about the meals here.
Yes. It's one of the few places that I have a lot of friends who are in my same situation, and most of the places now don't offer two entrees at meal times, which they have a very nice menu here, and they have special menus for people that need special diets, and the man at my table has very many allergies, and they watch out for him every day.
What was it like to meet new people?
Oh, I don't have too much trouble meeting new people.
You're pretty sociable, huh?
I was a professional photographer, and so I was always thrown into situations where I had to meet people and deal with them. So it's been very easy for me.
Now, what about the cameras of today?
I'm amazed. When I was doing it, you had to know something. And currently you can take a phone and take a pretty good picture with it. Your composition may not be good, but you get few bad pictures.
Well, I was going to say, and then today people don't even use the dark rooms.
No.
And can you believe that film is very rarely used?
Yes, that's right. And I went through spills. When I started shooting transparencies, which people call slides, the ASA was 10, and now it's like 400.
Right.
And you had to have large lights like they use in studios to get any image.
Well, and as someone who has shot slide film, I can tell you it is still, one of the better ways to shoot. A lot of people don't understand that because it's all digital stuff. Anything memorable that you shot that you'd like to share with us here? It's not often we meet a professional photographer.
I've done so many types that one of the people I remember was I photographed Perry Como's son and his wife and baby, and that was in the 1950s.
Wow!
And most people don't know who Perry Como is today.
Big star.
Yes, But at that time, he was a Notre Dame student. I was in South Bend, Indiana, and it was a thrill to see somebody that was noted.
Well, how did you end up here?
My wife's health brought us to Idaho because she had a lot of serious back problems, and neurosurgeon in Cincinnati told us that it was so humid there, she'd be better off in a dry climate. And her brother lived here and gave us a sales pitch, and that's how we got here. And we moved here in 1968.
Boy, a lot has changed since 1968. 50 years, huh?
We came from Cincinnati, and your freeways are like they are today here. And we drive to Nampa and hardly see a car on the road.
They got that big bridge in Cincinnati over the Ohio River.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you're from Ohio, where all good things come from, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know when you fly into Cincinnati, you actually land in Kentucky.
Right. Covington, is that right?
Correct.
Yep. Well, you and I could go back and forth of our Ohio roots.
I know you didn't you come from Pennsylvania?
I did. I worked in Pittsburgh, but I was born in Ohio.
Oh, you were? I didn't know that.
Yeah, northeast Ohio, Akron.
North.
Yeah, the good part of the state.
Oh, well, I was, the southern part on the Ohio River.
You're right. You're right. Cincinnati, a wonderful place. More coming up here. You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. It is the Welcome Home Show from Garden Plaza of Valley View. We'd love to hear from you next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Welcome back to Welcome Home. We've got Fred, we've got Doug with us. And Fred, you were talking about being a professional photographer, and could you share? You actually have photographed the photo finish,
Yes.
photo finish.
At the racetrack. It was a very different camera. It had no shutter in it. It had a slit, and so the motor drove the film at the speed the horses were going. So you adjust it for quarter horse or thoroughbreds, and everything that was on the image was the finish line. So people look at it and they don't realize that everything is on because it's the horses travel past.
Now, for aspiring photographers like myself and young Jacob here, what advice would you give us today to be a photographer today?
Read your camera manual before you shoot a picture.
Those things are pretty thick.
But whenever I bought a new camera, I'd hold the camera and go through the instruction manual and see all the functions. It's amazing. People don't know what their cameras will do.
You're right. And everybody just puts it on automatic as opposed to manual, and shutter speed and
Yes.
aperture and all those things.
Yes.
I don't know what they mean. I just know the terms, but we'll continue on.
Well, it used to be if you didn't get the shutter speed, the aperture, and the focus, you would not get a very good picture.
Well, and not to opine too much, but today, I shot film. I was trained as a photojournalist in the Army, and we had to use the darkroom and such. But today, people do a lot of post-production with the computers.
Correct.
You can take a bad photo and you're still
Enhance it, yes.
right. Well, what is your thought on that? You had to work for yours.
Yes, I had a lot of experiences in the darkroom.
Right. Doug, back to you. It's been about a week. Any thoughts here about Garden Plaza Valley View? And you get ready for the holidays. Your dad talking about getting ready to go out. And one thing that we've learned from our stay here is that the staff always makes sure that people, if they're leaving for the holidays or coming back for dinner, they're always welcomed and ready to come back to their home because this is their home.
Absolutely. I literally cannot say enough positive things about Valley View. The staff and the facility are just exemplary. I've never seen a staff without a smile on their face, and they address Dad by name. They address me by name, and I'm here a little bit, but nothing compared to a resident. So it literally feels like home away from home, and it is a very positive feeling for me.
When you take a look at the holidays, and you're going to be spending a lot of time with your dad. He'll be here. You'll be at other places. What will that experience be like?
It won't be much different than when he was in a house, independently by himself. Until 4 weeks ago, like you mentioned, when he went to the VA, the hospital, he was living independently on his own. And we get together, we share family memories, all the normal things of the holidays, but we also have independent time for each other. And as an example, he was driving, so he would drive to families' homes for dinners or friends' homes. A lot of times someone from his church or other social organization would have him for dinner, watch football games, all those kinds of things. So it's just an incredibly important time of year to experience family and friends and have that common social experience.
So this has been a really quick turnaround for your dad, going from his own home to being here at Garden Plaza.
It has. Now, one of the things I say about my dad a lot is he's a very rational, pragmatic person. And so as an example, we knew this day would come. So he looked at his house. He had already spoken to a real estate agent. He had talked to people in preparation of, the eventuality of this day. Now, the day did kind of present itself in a unexpected fashion, maybe quicker than what we really expected, but he was already had the wheels in motion with the anticipation that at some point he would need independent living or assisted living. And one of the beauties of Valley View is they have that full gamut of care available, independent living to assisted, and you can move back and forth as needed, and then skilled nursing as as your health fails as you get older or for whatever circumstance. So it's just an incredible facility. I'm very pleased.
And when you take a look at, you have your own space, but then you have the community space. So if you want to play checkers or watch the game on the big screen, or I hear there's some poker games going on, you can do a lot of things here.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, Kevin, because one of the things that Dad was really looking forward to is he loves to play bridge. He has played bridge his whole life, and trying to find now 3 other people to play bridge with is it's rather difficult to find someone who's interested and can commit the time. And they have a bridge club here that he can either sit in and be a substitute, or he can join the club directly and be a regular member. So that's one of the things that I really look forward to. You're speaking to my dad, so you can see he's a very rational person. His mental faculties are all there, and I want him to keep that up. So
for an old man.
Oh, don't. Whatever.
Fred, have you had a chance to play with the bridge? Do any bridge tournaments yet?
No, I've just been here a week, and I've had orientation and things that, and I think the bridge is in the independent living, and my goal is to get over to be in independent living.
Well, and obviously we have the folks that can do that for you here. And, what was it like for you, your son marvelously telling about how you had everything planned out, but you decided it was time to move here, sir. What was that like for you to make that decision?
Very difficult. We built a house in 1972, and my wife and I have lived there ever since. So when you collect junk like we have collected, it's personal memories, but it's hard to just say it's going in the trash. And so I've gotten some of my things, my grandchildren and my children have expressed interest in taking, which I said, that's great. But there's closets and they're stacked to the rafters, and a lot of things I need to go through and just say, you got to pitch it.
Right. Boy, that's easier said than done, though, isn't it, sir?
It's there. They're in your heart.
They are. They are.
Yes.
So, have your grandkids been by yet?
Oh, yes. I see them, and they haven't been here yet. They were to see me in the Veterans, but it's all, and I've had a lot of doctor's appointments. I have a doctor's appointment to vets this morning, and I was very healthy, I thought, and I found out I have serious heart troubles, which I have not had any consequences of before.
Well, we're sorry to hear that, but thank you for your service, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate that, sir.
I can't say enough about the veterans either. I was there over Veterans Day, and 2 different families came in, and there were 4 to 6 members of each with cookies and cards, and it was just unbelievable to me. And the number of volunteers at the veterans. If you walk around through there, you see red and blue vests that are all volunteers, and it's amazing how many people come in. And they have dogs come in every week, and I enjoy seeing the dogs.
I'm with you. It's all about our 4-legged friends. What does it mean? What did it mean to serve your country?
You know, I never thought much about it. I had 2 brothers in the Second World War, and their experiences were much harder than mine. I did spend 1 year in Korea in 1952, but it was still a very easy service, and I very much thought about making it a career, but things just didn't work out, so I got out, and I was very happy because I would never have met my wife. We were married 58 years, and she was a wonderful person.
Well, and you're a wonderful person.
Thank you.
And we know you're going to have a good time with Doug and your family. Anything else you'd like to say, Fred? You've been a great guest. We could just have you keep going.
Well, I do have to leave for an appointment to see the heart doctor, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you, and thank you for listening. God bless you. God bless you, Doug. Appreciate
God bless
you guys. You're listening to Welcome Home on KIDO Talk Radio. That's 107.5 FM, 580 AM with Kevin Miller. More coming up next on KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Richard Wexler joining us now, President and CEO, Points of Life and Memory Tech Labs out of Eagle, Idaho, otherwise known as Elder Ed. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us here at Garden Plaza of Valley View. This is something that hits every American, yet we don't talk about it. What happens when we age?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Most of us do not want to talk about this subject. There's only one subject worse. I won't name what that is, but most people don't want to get into a very complex conversation about what it means to age. And there's a lot of consequences for not having that conversation.
Well, and we're seeing that. So let's start off with, why is there such a reluctance to talk about aging? It happens to all of us.
You know, it's funny. In this country, we spend a lot of money trying to alter our body. We spend a lot of money taking supplements to make sure that we're healthy, also to try and slow down aging. And it's not a subject that we've really talked about over the years. Also, nowadays, with the advancement in medication, people are living a lot longer. I actually lost a client a couple years ago. He was 117 years old. I'm not saying everyone's going to live to that time frame, but there are a lot of challenges that come in if we don't have this discussion about what it means to age, what care is all about, what care costs, what resources are out there. And basically, from a family perspective, if loved ones are aging around you, what do they want? What are their wishes? Do you understand that?
How do we get past the just overall uncomfortableness of it? Because it's always better just kind of, well, Pop seems to be doing okay, Mom seems to be doing okay, and we'll just let them keep driving and what have you.
There has to be a realization, and I'm going to throw some numbers at you. There's over 130 million people in this country that are currently over 50. There's 80 million baby boomers within that number that are moving north, and we hope we're moving north. I'm smack in the middle of that generation. And out of that, about 34 billion people have already provided unpaid care for a family member. So realistically, I mean, we have options. We can plan, which a lot of people see as a four-letter dirty word. We can deal with this in crisis, or unfortunately, like a lot of people, kind of the example you just gave, we can decide we don't want to deal with it and then deal with whatever that means. So what we try to encourage, we teach this class nationwide called Elder Ed. It is elder education. And
Not elder ed. Elder education.
But it's actually called Elder Ed, but it's
Okay.
but in a long frame it stands for Elder Education, but we call it Elder Ed. So what we're trying to get people to understand, the first component within Elder Ed is this family conversation that no one wants to have. And that's whether, let's make up some names, daughter Becky and her husband Bill and mom Barbara. It's really hard for Becky and Bill to have a conversation with mom. It's also very hard for Barbara to have a conversation with her children. So we try to educate people about this conversation, why they should have it, what they should talk about, so they don't fall into option 2 or 3, dealing with this in crisis or not dealing with it at all.
So if people want to get a hold of you, Richard, what can they do?
So the best way is a couple of different ways. My phone number, which is 925-984-0118. My email, which is my first initial R, my last name, Wexler, W-E-X-L-E-R, R Wexler, at points, P-O-I-N-T-S, of O-F, life, L-I-F-E.org. R Wexler at pointsoflife.org.
We'll obviously give that out a few more times, and this is just out of Eagle, Idaho. If you have this,
I work out of Eagle, Idaho, but we work nationwide. So we've also built a small network of people in the elder care industry to be able to help irrespective of where a loved one lives. So we have over 18,000 resources in this industry. So we may be based in Eagle, but we could help someone in Cincinnati or New York or Chicago or some small town, wherever it might be across the U.S.
how big? You talked, you shared with us moments ago about how big this is. We've heard so much about the baby boomers, and, if you're a Generation X or you've turned 50, and, that smaller generation, how big of a strain is it going to be on those folks that they don't have the population to keep up with their boomer parents or grandparents?
It's going to be devastating if people aren't prepared. And the biggest piece is what people have to understand, about 95% of us are going to need some form of care, whether that's an hour, 5 years, or something in between. So care is both emotional and care is extremely expensive financially. So people have to understand, are they putting away the appropriate savings to be able to help loved ones pay for care? Are people putting away the appropriate savings to help themselves when they get to that point? And or are people going to physically take care of a loved one themselves? And what does that mean per their own life? They have a husband, they have a wife, they have children, they have a job. Are they going to move in with mom? Is mom going to move in with them? There's a lot of factors that have to be looked at, irrespective of whether you're 40, 60, or 80 or above.
Well, what's the first thing that somebody should do?
The first thing is what we talked about a couple of minutes ago, and that's reach out to family members.
But, Richard, how do you do that when, earlier we were hearing Fred and Doug, and they have a good relationship, but, when you're used to being the father or the mother, still calling the shots, and eventually in that circle of life, the roles get reversed. But at first, you've got the guy in the chair, and the guy in the chair still wants to call the shots. And if you could expand on that, they probably don't want to have this conversation.
So I understand that, and I talk about that a lot, and we give people advice. So let's say, back to our example, you're Bill and Becky, the kids. If you go to mom or dad and just say, we need to talk, what do you think mom or dad are going to do? They're going to say no, and they're not going to want to talk. But the average child, a child could be 50, 60, 70. We see 70-year-olds that are helping their 95-year-old and plus parents. When the child reaches to mom or dad or both and says, "Mom, I need some help," irrespective of what age mom is or dad is, and whether dad's in a wheelchair or whatever, they're going to usually respond in a positive manner and say, "Becky, Bill, what can we do? How can we help you?" That's the first step for a child.
And then when you play that Jedi mind trick, if you will, which is brilliant, then what's the next step? I need some help. And, again, when you're dealing with folks it's a different generation, Richard, as you know, than the cooperative one we have today with the younger people that are more about cooperation than competition. But, you're dealing with someone who, maybe they don't want to leave their home. Again, Fred here, he made the logical decision, but maybe they built their home. Maybe it's their identity. We get attached to so many things. So, okay, Timmy, I have a problem. We need to worry about you. I'm worried about you in this house. Well, don't worry about me.
And I understand that. And basically what we're going to counsel the quote-unquote children to do when they start talking to mom or dad is they need an understanding of what mom and dad want to do as they age. And dad may be 95 in a wheelchair, and he doesn't think he's aging. And obviously that's not quite correct. So the more Bill and Becky reach out to mom or dad, try to understand exactly what they need and what their wants and wishes are. They're not telling them what to do. They're simply understanding, because like you're talking about, the average individual as we age has a few options. They can choose to move to a beautiful community like this. They can choose to get care in the home. That can be done a few different ways. Go ahead, Kevin.
And we're going to come back to that in a second. More with Richard Wexler, otherwise known as Elder Ed, Elder Education. This is really important information, folks. We're sharing it with you right here on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio, Richard Wexler joining us. Richard, if people want more information, currently we're at Welcome Home, Garden Plaza, Valley View, talking about something that hits everyone, and that is aging, taking care of oneself, taking care of one's parents or grandparents. This is your specialty with Elder Ed. What can they do to get a hold of you?
Two things. Call me, 925-984-0118. Email me, first initial R, last name Wexler, Wexler, at points, POINTS, of life, LIFE.org, rwexler at pointsoflife.org.
Earlier we were speaking, if you're just tuning in, about having that conversation with your parent. Earlier today we had Fred and Doug on, and Doug's talking about his dad coming here to Garden Plaza, Valley View. And he said, my dad's my hero. So what about the strain and stress of the son or the daughter saying, what type of life do you want to live? Do you want to be in your wheelchair by yourself and your companion's the TV? Or do you want to go to some place that, is going to take care of you?
So I can talk to that from a personal experience. The reason I started this business 13 years ago, I was in the software industry. So if you were talking to me 13 years ago, I didn't know anything about this, Kevin. My wife was at home with a business in the home. We had got married later, had two small children. Our son was 11, our daughter was 7. We got 3 phone calls almost back to back to back. Mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my dad, all exceptionally ill. So I'm not saying that everybody's going to have 3 parents get ill at the same time. We're actually now, so we cared for them for 3 years until they eventually passed. I'll talk about that in a second. Then 10 years ago, what was my 85-year-old mom, we started caring for her. She's now my 95-year-old mom, and we're still caring for her.
You've got good genetics.
Well, I hope so. So we understand this not only from a professional standpoint, but very much from a personal standpoint. Having those conversations is difficult. Trying to make the right decisions is difficult. Trying to keep that parent involved in that conversation can be challenging. But the biggest thing of all, it's besides the financial aspect, it is the emotional aspect that you were talking about. This can be extremely hard on the aging loved one. It can also be extremely hard on the other loved one, the younger one that's providing care. And many times that might be the 85-year-old wife that's providing care for her 85, 86, 87-year-old husband. And what is that doing to both of them? So it is extremely challenging. You need the support from as many resources that are outside of your personal network as you possibly can. Does someone want to move to a beautiful community? Does someone want care in the home? What is that going to cost? What are the logistics involved? There's so many questions, and there's a lot of answers.
Well, that's where you come in. When we go back to your experience, you're married, you have three young kids, 3 or 2?
2.
2 young children, and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. As Dave Ramsey says, life happens.
Yeah.
What was that like for you and your family, not just you and your wife, but your kids, having to take care of her parents and your parents?
It was a complete shock, and I'm being honest. We weren't prepared. That's why I say, if you talked to me 13 years ago, I didn't know anything about aging, elder ed, care, cost of care. I found out the hard way. So what we're trying to help people understand is you don't want to follow my example. So we're still caring for my 95-year-old mom. This affects us to this very minute. As someone ages and someone goes through different levels of illness or falls, and she's broken both hips, it's like a roller coaster. And it can be extremely challenging. And I tell people it will never be easy, but if you plan for it, it will be easier on the family that's giving the care and also on the loved ones that are getting the care.
What don't we get about this?
I'd say the 2 things are the emotional aspect. People don't think, well, I've heard people look at me and say, it's not that difficult. Okay. Not many people go through 4 parents like I have, but even with 1 parent, it's extremely challenging. The biggest thing that my wife used to say to me when we were caring for the 3 10 years ago, and she would look at me and say it all the time, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? This is my mom, my dad, your dad. Are we making the right decisions? Am I doing the right thing?
Talk about stress on the caregiver, and then, Richard, you take a look at what happens if there's dementia or Alzheimer's. And a lot of us have been through that with family members, and it's indescribable, the impact when you see someone who raised you, gave you life, and all of a sudden their memory is wiped, and they don't know how to take a shower.
That's probably one of the most challenging aspects. Obviously, a physical disease, a physical fall, you add that with some level of dementia or Alzheimer's, as Kevin was saying, it can be unbelievably dramatic within a family. And this is actually the time of year where families start to see things like that. They could be 50, 60, and they're going home to see mom, dad for the holidays, Thanksgiving or Christmas. They haven't seen them since last summer, and all of a sudden, as Kevin was saying, mom is calling them by their brother's name. And they're confused, and the child's confused and don't understand. So when you're dealing with someone in a dementia situation or in an Alzheimer's situation, it can be very challenging very quickly. Then the questions come. Are you going to keep them at home? Are you going to take them to a memory community? What are you going to do? And most people don't know those options because, as we've talked about, they haven't discussed it.
Well, Richard, let me ask you, by the way, you mind if I give your websites out here?
Sure.
Okay, pointsoflife.org and memtechlabs.com. When people go to these sites, what will they see?
So on the Points of Life site, they're going to see my lovely face. They're going to see the work that we're doing both with the families per Elder Ed, the work that we're doing in the professional community per Elder Ed. We educate families and professionals across the United States. We also do a lot of work in the employment area because I call this elder care at work. That's where I was 13 years ago, kind of fairly high up in a software company trying to deal with 3 parents that were ill. And the unfortunate part, most companies haven't really changed in 13 years. And when you as the employee go to their website to see, okay, what's out there to help me with mom or dad, the answer is usually nothing.
Well, and we have employees getting better with child care, but not elder care. Do you expect this to be to have that type of growth eventually where we have elder care like we have child care for some employees?
That's an awesome question. So I'm old enough to, obviously, when I was working years ago, I even worked for some larger companies that had child care at the facility.
Right.
But I've been waiting now for years to see some progressive companies to put an elder daycare in their facilities so people can come to work and take care of mom or dad. I have not seen it. But I think you're right. I think at some point, as this progressively gets worse, I hate to say that, but it's going to get worse with 80 million baby boomers moving north, that companies are going to have to understand this is the child care crisis from 20 or 30 years ago.
Richard, we've got a few minutes left in Welcome Home here of Garden Plaza Valley View, and we'd like to get you on next week as well. So any advice that you could give people listening right now, and of course we want them to tune in next week as well, but what would you say in the last about a minute and a half, sir?
The best advice I can give people when I talk about this all the time, I say the same thing every time, it's talk to your family members, start that family conversation. If you have 5 or 6 kids in the family, you don't want all 5 or 6 ganging up on mom or dad. You know, there's usually an alpha dog in the family, whether it's a male or female. That individual needs to start that conversation with mom or dad, find out what they want and how they can help.
And those are words to live by, and obviously we want to make sure that everybody gets your information. One more time, please.
So my phone number is 925-984-0118. My email is my first initial R, my last name Wexler, W-E-X-L-E-R, at points, P-O-I-N-T-S, of O-F-Life, L-I-F-E.org. R. Wexler at pointsoflife.org.
I'm just checking your spelling here just to make sure we're good. That's a good job.
Some people get life confused with light. I've gotten that many times.
You and former President Bush.
There you go.
Points of Light, Points of Life. Richard Wexler, we appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next week. And you're located in Eagle, Idaho. People can swing in and hang out and get some information.
There you go. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, sir. Remember, you're listening to Garden Plaza of Valley View. We are here every week at this time from 2 to 3 on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio.